DA, based on the early exits the last 2 years, the fact that Mike won 60-plus games the last 2 years and was Coach of the Year 2 years ago just didn't measure up. And talk to us about what you know more about the decision that went into firing Mike Brown.
Well, Rick, I don't think it's anything more than that. Look, this was a team that has to win a championship. That they're on the short list. They're a contender for a championship. They feel like they have to win a championship. They obviously, with LeBron's situation, nothing less than a championship would be satisfactory. So, they didn't get it done. And I think if you looked at the way they went out against Boston this year, it just spoke to an uncertainty about whether this group is currently constituted could go forward. Now, because of the moves that they've made the last 2 seasons personnel-wise, because they traded for Antoine Jameson this year and they brought in Shaq and all those other things, all the other players, there's just not a lot of moves that they can make personnel-wise. They've changed the roster over 4 times in 4 years. There's not a lot more they can do at that end. The only move they really have left is to change the coach because, they can't really do anything else to try and convince LeBron James to stay. So that doesn't mean that LeBron ordered the firing. It's a common sense decision in that regard because they have no other cards left to play.
DA, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it seems to me that this was a very painful decision for Dan Gilbert and for Danny Ferry to make because to steal a title of a song, that midnight hour. There was a clause, I believe, that kicked in at 12 midnight last night that would have guaranteed Mike Brown the next year of his salary, over $4 million a year. They waited right up to the last minute to make that decision, which I think is a way of complimenting the job that Mike Brown did for that organization. And they understood what Mike meant to him. As you mentioned, sometimes there's only one path that you can take. There's not a better owner than Dan Gilbert. He has put all kinds of money into the Q downtown, building the new $38 million practice facility, the players that he's willing to go out and get. Danny Ferry, each season over the last 3 years, has continually changed that roster to try and make it better, to go further. But by them waiting up to the last minute, I think they wrestled with this decision, but eventually decided that there had to be some change.
Yeah, no question, Mike. They obviously, inside that organization, this was not an easy decision. This was not, this was a clear and obvious thing they had to do. They really went back and forth and wrestled with it because Mike did do a very good job the last 2 years. They did win 66 and 61 games the last 2 seasons. So, they have been an elite-level NBA team the last 2 years. They just haven't been able to get over the hump in the playoffs. And, what this tells you is that they only have, I think, a handful of guys that they really can go after. They got to go get a closer now. They have to go get a guy that's at least one championship, I would think, to make LeBron feel that the franchise was still going in a positive direction going forward. It's a short list. You're talking about Phil Jackson, you're talking about Pat Riley, you're talking about maybe Larry Brown, although I don't know what LeBron's relationship is with Larry based on the Olympic experience in '04, which was not very good. But Larry has won a championship and obviously has great gravitas and would fit the bill of what I call a closer.
DA, we're running out of time, unfortunately. Wish we could give you the whole half hour, but let's look big picture right now. How will all these coaching vacancies impact free agency in terms of our coaches and teams going to wait for players to drop, or players going to be waiting to make their decision before they know what coaches land where? How do you see that?
Well, I think you'll see whether in New Jersey, the Clippers, and Chicago, I think will definitely wait until July 1st because they all feel for one reason or another that they have a shot at LeBron, and so they're going to wait and see. I think you'll see Atlanta and New Orleans make decisions much quicker. I think Atlanta, Dwayne Casey and Avery Johnson, I believe, are the 2 candidates there. I don't think Avery's out of that by any stretch. And I think in New Orleans, you're talking about Monty Williams, the Portland assistant, and Tom Thibodeau, the Boston assistant. So obviously, if the Hornets have to see what happens with the Celtics, if they make the finals, they may have to wait a little bit longer than they'd like. But I think those are the people we're talking about.
Awesome stuff, DA. We appreciate the time as always.